All right, watching you count.
It is hot in here.
We are going
Or is
live
it just...
in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We are back at it. Brewz Brothers, episode 11 for the culture. Recording from the fine Midtown Podcast Detroit studios. Got our usual suspects here, plus one guest who he'll introduce himself in just a bit. We'll do our usual and go around the table and introduce ourselves. I'll start to my left this time because I know that my brother to my right is busy taking care of some things. So we'll start here with you, Mark.
Yep, I'm back at it. Took Sasha's spot, though, so a little different.
I'm Sasha. Donkers took my spot.
Just don't put her purse on the floor, dog.
Not me. No.
Hey, y'all, this is Robert. I am the guest for this evening and also a fellow podcaster. I am part of the Better on Draft podcast.
It's hard to follow that introduction.
He's also the Trivia Night King
Yes,
down at Eastern Market, right?
I am the Trivia Night King every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock at Eastern Market Brewing Company.
And he was kind enough to join us, find a sub who I'm certainly is not nearly as effective. However,
I don't think so. But hey, she's getting paid.
Hey, well, there it is.
Hey.
Hey, one way or another, if it being my own show, I just get paid for the many people that are there. For
Good
people
enough.
People who sub, they get max pay.
Right.
So no matter how many people she actually has there, she still is making more than me to this week than I've made in any week of the last 6 weeks.
Got you.
Something's got to change.
Well, Sasha,
man.
can we get a bell for Rob?
I got to get more people in there. more people got to get in there. So,
All right. Good
All
deal.
right.
Thanks, Rob.
Yes, indeed. And this is Grady back again from the wilderness of Wisconsin. So after what this is, I think I missed 2 or 3 shows.
I don't know, man. We'll have to look at the attendance record, man, and see where you
I'm
stand, brother.
That's why I'm probation all the time.
Well,
All these,
fortunately, you managed to bring back some good stuff. So
I brought some good stuff tonight.
Been forgiven.
some damn good stuff tonight.
yeah. And now we have our technician over
Right.
here.
Happy Wednesday, everybody.
Oh, boy.
Happy Wednesday.
Wednesday.
And Harry's Day.
And we'll have to see what Grady brought back, because if he really didn't bring anything good back, he'll never get off probation.
That's okay. I like it down there.
Never. And I think this might be my last broadcast.
You think so?
Yeah, because I think I'm going to fill in for Rob on Wednesday night.
You paid.
Get paid?
Yeah. Hey, cut the check. Cut the check.
The way you have beers hitting your porch, no, this ain't gonna pay for that. This doesn't pay for that at all.
Wayne, don't let your boss hear you talk about moonlighting, dog. Wake up in the morning with a phone call.
That's if he lets me go to sleep.
If you go to sleep, right?
Yeah, there you go.
It's the worst.
All right, so here we are, episode 11, ready to get started. We got some special things going on tonight. Later this evening, we have a special guest. We have the director of diversity and inclusion from Founders Brewing Company calling in to talk with us for a bit. And as you all know, we've been very, very critical of the things that have been going on at Founders, and rightfully so.
Yep.
We haven't been harsh, I don't think anyway. We haven't been unduly harsh, but we've certainly been critical and certainly very vocal about our stance with regard to purchasing or not purchasing their products, until some things get resolved. So the D&I director will be here with us for about 30 minutes. She's going to call in around 7:30, and we'll be able to have a conversation. We'll do our best to get to any questions that may be posed live. But as you can imagine, we've got several questions of our own. Right. And I'm sure she is going to require some time to kind of lay out how Founders plans to move forward and what kind of efforts and initiatives they have. So that's where we stand right now. What are we sipping on right now? I've got this Wisconsin Stout from Untitled Art, which is actually pretty good. Listerman in conjunction with Untitled Art.
I do love some Listerman.
Yeah, man, it's good stuff. I think you brought me some Listerman stuff before, and I enjoyed it.
Oh goodness, what is the pastry stout? Yeah.
The pastry stout.
Yeah.
Hey, shout to Mark Logus. Anytime we talk about pastry stout,
It's a myth.
as a matter of fact, I think earlier today he said there was going to be some chocolate pastry stout. Did I see something about that?
I believe it when I see it.
Right.
You have to take everything Mark Logan says with a grain of salt.
2 grains.
But in speaking of Mark and Old Nation, let's give a birthday shout out to Travis today.
Yeah,
happy
man.
birthday, Travis.
Fritz.
Birthday.
Happy
birthday.
birthday, Travis.
Happy
And-
birthday. Can we get a birthday bell for Travis Fritz? Keep that good beer coming,
That's
brother.
about how old he is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and may he be enjoying his birthday like a boss.
I'm certain he is.
Tweed jacket and all.
That was not choreographed. I promise. Not at all. So, I saw, actually on my way in here, I saw a list of like the top 7 hazy beers to buy. And what I noticed is that they were all from relatively big breweries. Like the Chutes was on there, a couple of other bigger breweries. And what I know, and this was on, I think it was Vine Pair. So what I know is they may not be as in touch with some of the local breweries, and not just Michigan local breweries. Because, you know, every time I get a chance, I tout the excellence of Michigan IPAs and Northeast style IPAs. We're doing it just as well as anybody else in the country. But they didn't highlight any of the kind of smaller breweries. There was no Treehouse. There was no Holmes. There was no Ascension. There was no Trillium.
So it was a paid for list. Is what
Well,
it
that's what
sounds
I was
like.
getting. Sounds like somebody cut a check
Yep.
and
was
said,
like
"Hey, put
a-
us all on this list."
A very paid for list. I mean, right off the top, when I'm looking at number 8 and from Schlafly,
Yeah,
and wait, why are you sitting here even in the top 10? Is
at all.
At all.
You don't belong.
You
One
know,
of these things is not like the other.
New Belgium Voodoo Ranger.
Yeah. See.
Blue Point Hazy Bastard. I
Yeah.
don't even know where that is even from.
Yeah.
There's, and of course there's Sam Adams.
Yeah.
New PA.
You gotta have that.
I
there.
mean,
you gotta have that.
for
Come
something
on.
that is still relatively new
Yeah.
for the hazy IPA market.
Yeah.
I don't see how that jumps in there at number 5.
Doesn't work for me, man. Doesn't work for me. And that's the thing. I'm like, who's writing these lists? Because you could at least, it doesn't have to look so paid for. You could at least, pencil in, a Trillium. Because it wouldn't be hard to pencil in
No.
Trillium. Because so many people know about it.
Right.
And to be honest, I mean, they're doing good work. It's not like it'd be, a ringer of any sort. Couldn't hurt to throw them in there.
And of the list, there's only one in here that I've actually had is the number 4, the Two Roads Too Juicy Double IPA, which is decent.
Yeah.
I don't think I would put that in the top 5, never mind the top 8.
I saw a list. I don't know if it was this one. It had Bell's Official on it, which again, I'm not putting.
Really?
Official is, if I go somewhere and Official is what they have, I drink it.
Yeah.
It's not going on any of my top 10 lists.
No, not at all.
No.
I mean, and like you said, nothing against Bell's.
Nothing at
Right.
all.
And
Nothing at
at
all.
it's
all.
a very
Yeah.
drinkable beer.
Yeah,
Right,
absolutely.
right. It's not
but
bad at all.
It's not what you say. Hey, this is going to be.
Let me go get a case of Official
Right.
right now. It's just not. It's just not that. So speaking of the hazy IPAs or local IPAs, shout to Mark for muling some stuff that was procured from us or for us from Holmes, and shout to George Davis for standing in the not so warm rain
Oh my
and
gosh.
taking care of us on that. So
The line was crazy.
Shout
I
out
saw
to
it.
George.
It was
Yeah, shout out
crazy.
to George.
Oh.
Yeah, I saw some pictures of that line, and I also saw there was a guy on one of the local groups who came with the obligatory, "Hey, standing in line for beer is stupid," and he pretty immediately became the object of ridicule in about a 78 comment thread. And, guy, it was pretty funny, and again, I mean, I am not. I'm not enamored with the idea of standing in line for beer. However, I mean, it's good stuff, and if that's the only way you're gonna get it,
If it's the only way you're going
Yeah.
to get
if
it.
I got to choose
Right.
between relegating myself to going to Meyer and getting a pack of Official, or standing in line and getting some rain from Holmes, I think I'm standing in line.
No, I don't know about that, Harry. You know, because sometimes that rain could be quite treacherous.
Sometimes.
You know.
Sometimes.
So would you really pass up official and stand in line?
Yeah. Have you had any of the home stuff from this last release?
I have not.
You'll pop open that can of rain and you'll say, you know what? This was probably well worth the wait.
Okay.
And it wasn't a torrential downpour. I mean, it was, it was on and off, medium showers at worst. It was,
And that's what ponchos are for.
ponchos.
Right.
People had umbrellas and whatnot,
Right.
You go and you prepare for the weather. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
I
Now,
mean,
which
that's
one of
small
these is
price
the
to pay.
rain?
The orange can or the
gold
goldish
can.
can.
The only
With the crown on
the
it.
only
the
one.
Budweiser hazy.
The Budweiser.
King of beers, man.
King of beers,
King of
man.
beers.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, it's a triple IPA. Super drinkable, like you could sit and drink 3 of them and not realize it
Okay.
until you try to stand up.
Oh.
So, it's dangerous.
I
it's
forgot
smooth.
to add something to the table. Forgive me.
This is
Oh
some
yeah, the
water.
hop water. Yes, indeed.
Okay.
All right.
I was very skeptical about the hop water, and I still am because I still haven't tasted it. However,
Great.
it is gaining traction and it's getting some good reviews from people that I trust. Like my brother here to my right. Is this how many 4-packs have you had so far?
That's my fourth or fifth. That's my fifth 4-pack.
So you've at this point purchased 20 bottles of this stuff.
Yes.
So it's good.
Yes.
Okay.
Is
All
it
right.
better than Natter Days?
Oh. And Sasha
That's
bidding for
objective.
the early exit this evening.
It's a good thing she switched seats with Mark today, or we could have easily just pushed her right on out the door.
Aw.
So we don't want to inconvenience Mark because of Sasha's mistakes.
Yeah.
But
Lucky
the
sat over here.
the hop water fits that bill in a couple of spaces. One, when you want that carbonation,
Yeah.
but you don't want the sugary calories of pop.
Okay.
When you want to get that with a good sandwich, a good lunch, and you just
Yeah.
say, I like a good ice cold Coke.
Yeah.
Give
Give me a good ice cold hop water
give me
instead.
good cold ice cold hop water, 0 calories, 0
Okay.
carbs,
Okay.
and it's very tasty.
I'm going to judge you.
I mean, I've not had any of this yet, so I'll have to try this myself as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell
But
you to give it a
I
shot.
kind of feel like hop water is just basically tea for beer drinkers.
I feel
Essentially.
like it's poorly named is what's making me feel like it doesn't sound good. It sounds like backwash to me. Like it just kind of.
And it looks kind of like
Maybe
it
they should rename it to backwash.
Or bong water.
A bog water.
Right.
It does
Okay.
look like ball.
Hot dog
It doesn't
water.
inspire me to want to drink it because it just doesn't sound good.
You want some
know.
hop water? I got some hop water over here.
So, a little bit of a good segue while we got Rob here. 2 weeks from today, we will be at Eastern Market Brewing Company.
All right.
recording a
All right.
podcast. So, shout to Dylan. We still got a few things to iron out. Matter of fact, Dylan, I owe you a phone call, but got a few things to iron out. But we've got the date solidified. And,
Dylan or Dane?
I'm sorry, Dane. And so, so we're all good. So 2 weeks from today, April 17th, we will be live at Eastern Market Brewing Company, and you might even hear Rob in the background doing his trivia.
Oh, you will.
No, you'll hear Wayne in the background.
Oh, you're
getting
right.
paid.
You'll see Wayne in the background, and Rob will be over here with us.
Rob will be with you guys. I'll be in the back getting paid. Let's not forget about that.
So, Rob, what can we look forward to over at Eastern Market?
You can look forward to a very good selection of beers. Obviously, you've had the white coffee stout.
Yes, I have.
And this is why I am so mad that I accidentally left the 4-pack sitting at the Royal Oak studio when I was rushing out because I was in the wrong place.
Yeah.
For the second week in a row.
Yeah. Get it together, brother.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. But I mean, it's just a really good selection of beers. From their pilsners to their stouts. They've got some fruit ales that they're doing right now.
Okay.
Which they just came out with a fruit ale with plum. I think they're doing one a peach mango that they're getting ready to put out pretty soon.
Okay.
They've got their hazy IPAs.
Which I've heard great things
Yes.
about.
So the one that they've basically been doing has been elephant juice, which has been
Yep, I've heard
the
great
big one that
things
they've
about it.
had.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then they just recently put out another one, which they called And One.
Okay.
which I think they put on tap probably about 2-3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And that one has been hitting just as well.
Yeah.
So there's
Good deal.
a lot of good stuff, a decent selection. Like I said, from all of those, they still even have the barley wine that they've been sitting on.
Yeah,
And because that's the thing, I think with beer drinkers, they don't. No one really gravitates to barley wines unless you've had them before and
Gotta
you've
have-
enjoyed
right,
them.
right.
And so that barley wine has probably been on tap longer than Popovich has been the coach of the Spurs.
Wow,
Because it's just been sitting there.
Yeah.
It's just there. And
Yeah.
every month or so, while I'm hosting, I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to try the barley wine. I'm going to see what it tastes like this month.
Yeah.
And it feels like it changes.
Okay.
And maybe it's just me and I just want it to change. And
Right.
it's just, but every time it's like, this is on point. This
Well,
is
sir,
really,
we shall
really good
find
stuff.
out in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
good deal.
pretty much everything there, unless it's on Nitro, you can get it canned.
Okay.
And you can walk out the door. I believe you can actually even go to their website and you can order the cans to go and just show up and then
Sweet.
you got the cans ready.
Now that's a dope concept.
That is,
That
right?
is.
Right.
That is.
So here's the most important question. I understand that Wednesdays are 50-cent wing night.
Wednesdays is, oh my God.
How are the wings?
Damn.
That sounds promising.
So they basically, they rotate 3 flavors.
Okay.
And there's, like I said, like you said, it's 50-cent wings.
Yeah.
And they're always on this rotation of different flavors and different combinations that, it's not your Buffalo Wild Wings.
Right. Right.
It's just, I mean, you'll get chicken, you get like the curry flavor,
Yeah.
or the honey. I think there's like a honey lime or something like that, which
Okay.
they've doing right now.
Yeah.
Which was new for. They always feel like they have a flavor that's new every week.
Nice.
And then they'll rotate a couple others that is like the favorites that have been happening in the last few weeks.
Well, I'll say this: I always drink responsibly when we do these podcasts. However, I may not eat wings responsibly. I might be wing drunk by the time we leave Eastern Market.
As I left there, because the sub host, I was giving her my HDMI splitter because they'd like the teams are very spoiled and they like to see the questions on multiple TVs.
Really?
And as I was getting there,
You got a bougie trivia night.
Right.
channel.
We want it on all the screens, please.
So Fox 2 was there, and so I guess they're going to be on the news tonight because they were doing a collaboration with Kuma from Cultivate.
Nice.
So
nice.
I ran shout out to
Yeah,
Alex
hit
and
the bell
Kuma.
for Kuma real quick, my man.
And both of
Yeah.
them, they're collaborating there, and they're putting together a new beer.
Okay.
It's man, I can't remember the flavor. It was like it was like a fruit cream ale, and I can't remember what it was, but it sounded really good.
Sounds promising. Okay.
But as we were sitting there talking, Charlie Langdon is just sitting there, and he's just tearing these wings down.
Nice.
And I was like, all I said
Charlie
was like,
Langdon looks like he can eat some wings.
Yeah.
He does, and he
He-
looks like he shouldn't be interrupted while he's eating his wings either.
nope.
Yeah.
I just looked at him and said, good reporting, and
Yeah.
just walked out. That was
That's
it.
it.
I was
That's
like,
it.
no need to, like, you got wings in your hand. I'm not handshaking, no
none of that.
fist pounding up.
Yeah,
Like,
none
you
of
enjoy
that.
your wings.
Indeed.
You do good stuff in Fox 2. That's it.
Right.
I'm out.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, we're looking forward to it, man. It'll be my first trip down there. Again, I've had the white coffee stout, hearing good things about the IPAs, and now I definitely want to get into that barley wine. So we're going to have a good time, man.
Yeah. I think you're going to enjoy it.
Sasha,
Absolutely.
did you get some of this? Everybody wants some.
I can't stand you.
Hey, I got to say, man, this
Yes,
hot
I
water
did.
is all right. It is rather refreshing.
It's refreshing.
Hey,
Burden
man,
shit.
It's simple.
it's refreshing. I could drink this. Like I could pour it in my Yeti cup and drink it in the car, just on a warm day when I'm tooling around, whatever. I could do this.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. I would not choose it.
It's not bong
I
water,
would, I
right?
would get it's
not
not
bong
bong
water.
water.
Well, you
Okay.
got your natter days, so you.
But on
Never
the
gonna live it down.
on the light scale, if I wanted to go that life, the Just Torf from
Oh, yeah.
Ascension,
Yep.
that has been one of my favorites, like low ABV beers. that
Okay.
I will just I remember I went there and picked up a 4-pack, and normally when I do that, I'll just have like, all right, I'm gonna try one,
Yeah.
and I'm just gonna sit on the rest. I had the one, and then I cracked open a second
Kept
right
after
there.
it.
And
Yeah.
I've never done that with any beer.
Yeah. Well, I had something last week from Untitled Art, the Marionberry Berliner, and it was really good. It was dry, low ABV.
That beer set you up.
Boom, boom. Had me on camera. I was not smoking crack. That's not me. But no, it was it's very refreshing.
Harry and Barry.
Nice dry finish, but real fruity. Tart, not sour for you, Wayne.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I think it was like 3.5%, 4% alcohol. So, nice low ABV, something to hang out with in the summer. We just had a couple people walk in that missed the introductions.
Sure did.
We got the Whale Slayer here. What's up, Juho?
Not much, man. How are you?
Great, man. Good to have you back, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we got Mr. Christian Sunday himself.
What's going on, people?
Yeah. So the circle is now complete. What I want to do is take a short break now, so that we don't have any issues with our call-in at 7:30.
Yeah.
So that'll give us a few minutes to make sure call-in line is good and that we don't have any interruptions or complications during that period. Is that cool, Ellen? All right. So we're going to take a short break.
For our Facebook feeds, we'll be right back.
Yeah, we'll be right back, and we'll be coming back shortly in the next segment with the Diversity and Inclusion Director from Founders Brewing Company. We'll be back. Brewz Brothers for the culture. as Founders begins to move forward?
Yeah, definitely. So the structure for the diversity and inclusion strategy that is built into the business model is it's internally focused and it's also externally focused. And from an internal perspective, it's working closely with every department and understanding that different individuals in different departments need support in different ways. Someone who, let's say someone who's a female and who's in production is going to need different support than someone who is a white male who's a bartender. And so it's ensuring to, first and foremost, is what I've been doing is learning about how we can best support individuals in different departments and how can we equip them with the tools for them to have equity in their role and to be able to perform to their best selves. So it's been a lot of learning, learning what works, what doesn't work, what we should start implementing. And then also from that, I've built various focus groups, specifically built around those who are people of color, those who are female, those who identify as LGBTQ, et cetera, to also ensure that we have adequate training, that we have adequate platforms for various aspects of support, that we're also looking from a benefits perspective, that we're ensuring that the benefits that we're providing for our employees meet our employees' needs. And then also I'm working closely with our marketing team and with our HR teams. With our marketing, it's how are we showing ourselves as a company on social media? What do our advertisements look like? How are we ensuring that we have adequate representation of everyone who works at Founders, but also of our consumer base of who we're trying to reach? So historically, when you look at a traditional ad, and a beer ad, let's say, you're looking at a beer ad from 20 years ago, more than likely it's going to be a young white male with a beard holding a beer. And so we want to ensure that the representation that we're cascading out is reflective of our internal culture, but also reaches the customer who we're trying to build a connection with. And then from an HR hiring perspective, I'm working with HR to ensure that we have various hiring goals as it pertains to increasing racial and gender diversity, but also increasing diversity from an age perspective as well, and increasing diversity from a military status perspective, so that we're looking at things from a holistic point of view, but also that we're being strategic and building partnerships with various organizations that specialize with those areas. So that's going to help us not only be more reputable in the community, but also help build a sourcing strategy of a pool where we can have a diversified candidate pool instead of, hey, we have a position open. Do you have a friend who might be available? Which might have worked in a more traditional sense, but now it's imperative that we're more strategic. And then from an outside, an external perspective too, it's also building relationships with various organizations that are focused on diversity and community outreach and social justice, because an organization isn't going to grow with just being about other people's perspectives, learn about what works, what doesn't work, and build your model around it. So we are being very intentional and strategic on leveraging other groups and other groups' perspectives.
So you mentioned something that's very important, and I appreciate you kind of detailing the kind of things that you've got going on. And you mentioned intentionality, and that's something that I deem very important. And you and I just happen to be in the same line of work, so I get the importance of that. And in speaking of that, so I know this past weekend was Transgender Visibility Day. And Founders flew the rainbow flag and those things, and caught some social media flack behind that. I follow both you personally and founders on social media and kind of see some of the things that are going on, some of the attitudes. And so one of my questions is that was there anything in place, or should we look for something to be in place moving forward for Black History Month? We're looking at a situation where that particular community, if I can be frank, does feel ostracized, based on what's been going on at Founders and the litigation and all of that sort of thing. And to see that very visible show of solidarity, and not only for Transgender Visibility Day, but also like the Rainbow Thursdays and things like that. So there seems to be a very concerted effort to reach out to the LGBTQ community. Are there other communities, specifically in my line of questioning here, the Black community, that you are looking to have some outreach to and kind of ingratiate yourself towards?
Yeah, I love that you asked that. Great question. I'll answer that in just one moment. I forgot to include in my answer for the last question in regards to what we're doing internally. We've also have implemented diversity and inclusion training that what does diversity mean? And we talk about how diversity is what you encompass. It's what you bring to the table. And inclusion is ensuring that you have a seat and a voice at the table. But your diversity doesn't matter if you don't have a seat at the table, if you don't have a voice, if you're not included. And then also we've done unconscious bias training where almost nearly every employee has gone through that. And that's the focus of that is about understanding that we all have bias, but what's most important is how we react to that bias and how we need to allow ourselves and to allow others to bring down those barriers and really have that opportunity to get to know one another and ask questions before making assumptions and judgments about others, because truly at face value, we don't understand others and their journey. And then going back to Black History Month, that's a great question. We have talked about that internally. Certainly, myself, being a person of color as well, I think, I would love for us to be able to highlight Black History Month and do some efforts around it. However, we would need to ensure that everything that we do is authentic and it's genuine. And I wouldn't want us to next February roll out something for Black History Month because of recent events or as follow-up as recent events. I would want to ensure that we're doing it because we believe that it needs to be highlighted and not have it be misconstrued as a connotation with what's happening currently with the pending lawsuit. So I love that you brought that up. I know we have done things for veterans in the past in regards to our LGBTQ support. We have been doing that for years before things with the Chamber of Commerce and people questioning founder support of the LGBTQ community. So since that had been an ongoing thing, we continued to do it. But I certainly would love to further look into ways that we can ensure that we're highlighting Black history, but in a way that wouldn't appear to be reactionary.
So kind of my follow-up to that question, and I'll go around the table and let some other people ask some questions. My follow-up to that is there an option on the table or any conversation surrounding engaging stakeholders in that community and saying, hey, let's have a conversation about this, about how this should look? So kind of an outside-in approach combined with an inside-out approach. Because, again, we know what Founders looks like inside out in terms of the demographics of who works there and what kind of things have come out up to this point. And up to this point, there has not been that sort of embracing of the Black community or Black History Month or things of that nature. And so is there a plan or a framework, so to speak, where you do engage or where you can engage outside entities like a Brewz Brothers or like other groups? Because there are several groups that have the bandwidth and have the ability to say, hey, this might be a good idea, or hey, that's not a good idea, that kind of have a pulse on the community and can offer some insight.
Yes, I have been engaged with several organizations almost on a daily basis of it doing exactly that, to understand what makes sense, what would be a great tie-in, what's a great collaboration, what makes sense to do immediately and what makes sense to do down the road. And that's an effort, too, that Founders has been a part of before I joined. So Founders had been very intentional and connecting with Mike Potter with Fresh Fest, and had started dialogue there specifically on how do we connect and empower Black brewers specifically. And so that has been an area that they've been very focused on even before my arrival. Since I've arrived, I do focus on that every week with various organizations. So there's some things that you'll see coming up, and some collaborations that you'll see in the near future. And then there's some other larger partnerships that we're working on engaging for some things that will be more on a grand scale next year and the year after.
So in an effort to not hog up the time, I'll go around the table and let some other people ask some questions. We've got 8 people here. So you'll hear several different voices, and they can introduce themselves as they pose questions to you.
Excellent.
Hi, Gracie. My name is Wayne Phillips, and I just want to kind of follow up in regards to the questioning on the Black community, being that Founders Detroit location is located in a city that is approximately 85% of Black descent, as well as its location in what was formerly known as the Cass Corridor.
Yep.
I hear you say that you're reaching out, and there's some things that we will see maybe in the near future, a year or two or down the road. My concern is that as a former Founders Mug Club participant and former Founders fan, that it won't be enough soon enough to turn this ship around as to where the Black community is now viewing Founders.
Right.
So
I get that. If I could make changes happen overnight, I most certainly would do that. But I also understand that relationship building, first, it all starts with a relationship. You can't come in and say, hey, we want to partner with you just because we want to be in good with the Black community. You know, it has to be coming from a genuine place and starting by building relationships, understanding what, and having it also be a mutually beneficial relationship too. And so, yes, the public, to be realistic, it would take 6 months to a year to see a lot of that happening, because we're not just going to jump into something and slap our name on it just for the sake of optics. When we're truly about being intentional and truly about empowering various organizations as well. And we can't know how to best empower other organizations without having relationships with them.
Well, I don't think
I wish it could happen overnight.
No. I mean, I understand that, but I think, as you said,
but the work is done immediate.
In terms of being
So
intentional,
we're doing the work now, definitely.
And the optics, I guess that's the piece that's missing, because with your statement of Founders being intentional in the optics, that's what led them to where they are now. You know, so it's kind of like, okay, we're in this hole that we've dug, you know, and was it an intentional hole? Was it we were not concerned with the optics? You know, and that's kind of the pushback and the feedback that the community wants to know is, how do we get here? We understand you can't get out overnight, but it's like Founders refuse to address how they got to this point, and that's what's really hurting the most, in my opinion.
Well, and to kind of piggyback on that, and I agree with what Wayne is saying, and I think that beyond, not beyond, but in addition to the things that are alleged to have happened in the case, I think the equally important issue is what has been a perceived lack of urgency on Founders' behalf to do things to make this right. And I've said it over and over again, and I'll continue to say it. I don't want the Founders ship to sink. I want Founders to right the ship. But what I also know is that outside of our local areas, people aren't so forgiving. There is the fuck founders, pardon my language, but the fuck founders movement that has met a groundswell and has had quite a few black men and allies to the black community that are saying, you know what, we're not buying founders products, period. And that lack of a sense of urgency is what brought that about and allowed that to bubble up the way that it has.
Yeah, I definitely thank you for your clarification on that, Harry. Wayne, I definitely understand your concerns and your viewpoint on that. And to be real with you, also, part of the reason why too it will take some time of seeing what we're doing externally is because what's first and foremost most important is keeping our own house in order. We're not going to go out to externally and say, hey, let's partner together without ensuring that internally that we're in a great place, that internally we have gone through various trainings and we have established in our culture what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable. First and foremost, our obligation is to our employees to ensure that we are creating and have created a safe and open environment where all of our employees have the opportunity to be their authentic selves every single day at work. And we can't go out externally until that's happened because our employees are our core. That's the core of our business. And so what we're focusing first right now is internally. We are doing a lot of things externally in regards to relationship building and learning. But in order for that to be genuine, to be authentic, to execute it in the right way, to be strategic, it will take some time.
Definitely. And again, being in that very same industry or in terms of line of work, in terms of D&I work, I get that things don't happen overnight. But I also get, optics and people need to know what kinds of things are in place because, again, to whatever extent you can, because to people from the outside looking in, there's still that appearance that's been going on since last fall that Founders just isn't doing anything about this, and that the hope is that it just goes away, and that's just not going to happen.
And Gracie, with all respect, too, it's not just the events from last fall. There are specific examples that I can point to. Myself, I was so happy to get Founders down in my city, because I always stopped in Grand Rapids whenever I was near there to stop by and have a beer. And when the brew pub opened up, myself and about 20 other lodge brothers of mine, all dressed in black and white suits, went to Founders one night. And just the experience was just one that the majority of them will never go back. So it's not just the fall events, but it was just their treatment and made to feel as they were not wanted or they should not have been there or we should not have been there.
Yeah, and I apologize that you had that experience. I did hear you talking about that on the Brewz Brothers podcast back in February. And, it was heartbreaking. So I'm sorry that you had that experience. I definitely, as soon as I heard that, I did reach out to our team. And I go to our Detroit tap room about every other week. And we have been focusing heavily on ensuring too that we are customer service to everyone there. So it's very well possible that those people that you interact with are no longer there. And then we've also brought in training for service in Ann Arbor. And so we are investing heavily on ensuring that it's a safe environment, not just for our employees, but for our guests who come into the tap room as well.
Any other questions from around the table?
Yeah. Hey, Gracie, this is Mark. I think one of the things that I was most interested in was the diversity within the company itself. I think I saw at some point that there was a 16 or 17% minority percentage within the founder's family, and I was wondering if you're in two of the largest minority cities in Michigan. I was wondering if there were any plans to kind of bolster the numbers of minority hires, especially in the Detroit area, where 85% minority or people of color.
Yeah, great. Thank you for asking that, Mark. Yes, we've been very intentional and strategic on that as well. So that goes back to Harry's first question about what we're doing from an internal perspective. And one of the things I'm doing is working with our HR department on increasing those numbers. So in the traditional sense, Founders has been known to be a pretty big name. And traditionally, when a position would open up, we have over 600 employees. So how it would work is we'd hear about a position open up. One of the employees would think of somebody that they knew with someone in their network. Chances are typically those that we recommend and those who we know look and are very similar to people like us, right?
Yep.
So if we had the same demographic recommending people for jobs that are very similar to them, that's how those numbers kept multiplying. So we have been very strategic in partnering. We have a couple of organizations specifically that focus on people of color that we've been working with and sending jobs to as soon as they come out, to say first, hey, is there anyone in your network or do you know of someone who would be interested in this position? Instead of just saying, hey, does someone have a friend or a buddy who's just like them that we're going to fill? And so that way we have to be strategic and intentional to increase those numbers, because if we're not, the numbers are just going to continue to reflect the same thing.
Right.
So yes, you're correct. It's 17% people of color, 26% female. And I would love to have a conversation with you again next year around this time, and I'm hoping that those numbers would be increased. But also, again, it goes to keeping our own house in order first. We weren't at a place a few months ago or 6 months ago, especially after everything in social media, to say, hey, we're hiring, so if you're a person of color, we'd like to hire you, because we need to ensure that our environment is sound, that our environment is absolutely inclusive, where someone would walk into our environment, no matter what their demographic was or what their race was, that they would feel welcome and a part of the team. And so since that's been the main focus of building that internal culture, then we will start hiring more heavily. But we have started building those relationships with those organizations.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great question, Mark.
You got one, Sasha?
I do, sorry. Talking a little bit about keeping your house in order. I'm Sasha.
Yes. Hi, Natasha.
Hi. What has the internal reception been to these trainings, to your presence there? How is that going?
It's been going very well. It's been very eye-opening for a lot of individuals. So I incorporate a lot of my life journey and aspects of me when I do some of these trainings, especially in regards to unconscious bias training. At face value, typically people aren't going to be aware that I'm an immigrant from Central Africa, and typically they're not going to be aware that I identify in the LGBTQ community as well. And so it makes it personal, where someone may have assumed other things about me or labeled me differently than I am. And so it makes it very personal in that moment. But it's been eye-opening. There have been times where employees have cried afterwards. There have been cried because they were so enlightened and they felt very impacted and very empowered. And so it's important. It's super important at the employee level, first and foremost. And then in regards to my reception in the company as a whole, I've been received very well. I think people have been very happy to have a champion of our founders' culture, and also someone that they can go to connect with about some experiences that maybe they did not go to HR in the past, and someone also that can kind of be their liaison as well with HR and with their management team to help implement changes very quickly instead of feeling like they had to keep things silent. So it's been my position has been well received within the company.
Thank you.
All right, Rob here.
Thank you, Natasha.
I guess kind of two.
I'm sorry, did you say your name is Rod?
Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Yep. Two questions here. In terms of the bias training, is this going to be something that is going to be continuous throughout employees' careers with the company? I basically asked that question because in my experience with one of my jobs, that it tends to be where the training happens only when the company gets sued. And then it's, oh wait, we need to do this harassment training again, or we need to do this intellectual property training again because somebody screwed up. I mean, that's the first part. Is I want to know is whether or not it's going to be continuous, so that we can have confidence that this training can continue on with these people, so that we don't have this situation again like what we had in October.
Right.
Well, I'll let you answer that one first, and then I have a second one.
Okay, don't forget your second one.
Nope.
Well, great question, Rob. Yes, the work of diversity and inclusion never stops. It's also not a program that's a start and a finish. It's continuous. It's continuous because we are humans and we are continually evolving. And especially as the company grows, we're going to be working with more dynamic teams and more dynamic people. So the work of diversity and inclusion never stops, and the training also never stops. So the training when new employees come in, which has already been built into our new employee orientation. So our new employees, every new employee will get caught up to speed to where our current employees have experienced our existing diversity and inclusion training. From there, every training will build upon the previous, and there'll be trainings every single quarter that are already built into each department's team meetings. So it will be continuous and it's always evolving, but ensuring that every new employee comes in will be able to get the same experience of training that employees who've been here for years have already had.
Okay. As far as the second one, obviously, as we've already talked about, that this is something that is ongoing and it's going to take time to be able to build back, in a sense, this level of trust with with minorities and really LGBTQ to come back and start drinking Founders again. But I feel like we tend to be in a generation where we are a generation now that we want results now. So really, I guess the question I want to ask is, do you have any ideas you can share with us in terms of events and things that you would like to do in the brewery once the house is in order, so to speak?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So yes, coming up with especially this summer and June coming up, you will see more Pride-related events, specifically geared towards the LGBTQ community. And then also in June is Founders Fest. If you're familiar, Founders Fest draws in 8,000 to 10,000 people every year. It's a large concert series. This year, our events team has been very, very intentional to ensure that we have diverse representation from a musical entertainment standpoint. And our musical lineup is very diverse, where 4 of the 6 bands consist of bands who are people of color.
Macy Gray is performing,
and then we've
right?
also. I'm sorry.
I said Macy Gray is performing, right?
Is there a question?
She
is,
yeah,
yes.
that's what I
She
thought.
is
I
one
thought
of
I
the
had seen
performers.
that. Mm-hmm.
And we've also been more intentional too. We do live music every week, and so we've been bringing in more bands that are focused on, or groups that are jazz and soul and R&B and rap and hip hop. Whereas in traditional previous years of Founders, you wouldn't have seen a diverse musical lineup like that, like we have currently. And I understand that just saying that you have a diverse musical set, that doesn't make you a diverse company, but it's all about and everything lines up. And ensure you can't say that you're about diversity if you don't have diversity of representation in everything that you do. So in the future and even now, you will see much more of that. And then also too, this is kind of going back to one of the questions that was asked about, immediacy and when are we going to see some of the things. I'm very transparent and very open to share, especially on media platforms, to share about what we're doing. We learned before that our silence was deafening, and clearly that didn't get us anywhere except for being in the further detriment. And so I'm very open and transparent about what exactly we're doing, what our plans are, so that also that the community feels that they're part of it and that they have that transparency to know how important this is to us and how we're moving forward.
Gracie, I definitely want to respect your time. I know we're up against it. We've got 2 people who haven't had a question. Do you have a second, or do we need to let you go?
Yeah, my parents are amazing, and they're patiently waiting, so it's okay. I can do 2 more questions.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Grady?
My question is really, really quick and easy, I hope. So you talk about culture, and culture is one of the founding principles of any organization. And do you see your role within Founders actually improving the culture long term? And do you see yourself staying at Founders long enough to see this whole situation come to fruition, where we see like people of color being interested in going back to Founders, or is it just a short-term type of deal? You're here to kind of, navigate through the muddy waters and then disappear.
Yeah, I love that you asked such a bold question. I will ask the latter part of that question first. I am not here for the short term. I'm committed to this. I'm committed to this work. I am committed to diversity and inclusion. I am only here on this earth breathing because I was a part of an inclusive culture that took a risk on me. And so I 100% am going to be here to see this through. And obviously, like I said before, the work never stops. And so this work will continue. We do see my department is expanding in the future, where there will be other leaders of diversity and inclusion working at Founders as well. And I'm not here. And that was one of the questions, too, to be real with you, that I asked in my interview. In my interview, I said something about, where does Founders see themselves, a year from now or however long from now, when from a culture and social media standpoint, where we're in more positive light due to, and follow up to recent events. So I said, where does Founders stand on that? Is this going to be something that Founders says, yeah, we hired you to fix this solution and now we're good, so we don't need you anymore? Yeah. And their answer was that also along the same thought processes that I have, that this work never stops. And we want to, the only way that Founders culture can continue to be a greater culture is if we're actively working on this. It isn't something that you can be complacent about, because what we learned is if we're complacent about things, wrongdoings happen. And that's a risk that we cannot afford to take ever again, but also it's an obligation that we have to our employees and to our customers to deliver them a great culture and a great experience where everyone is safe and supported and welcome, whether they're sitting in our tap room in Grand Rapids or in Detroit, or if they're at the liquor store thinking about picking up Founders beer, or if they're at the grocery store in aisle 5 debating about what beer that they should get. And our culture, when you build a culture correctly and you build it with intentionality and you build it strategically, that culture will radiate. That will radiate to that individual at the grocery store as it will be to that person sitting at the bar in the tap room. And so this work never stops. It will always continue. And I am here to see this through, and I'm very committed to this work and what we're doing.
Hey, thank you.
Juho?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this is Juho. If I missed something or if I'm forgetting something, forgive me, but I want to step back for 1 second. This is in regard to the lawsuit being brought against you and the African American community in particular. I've heard you today talk a lot about optics and not wanting to seem reactionary. But when you don't do anything that's visible to people external to you, that also creates an optic. And some of the things that I have noticed is that by you doing not very much, as far as I'm aware, that is more visible to people outside of your company, that creates the optic that you don't care, that you just don't care, or that you've done nothing wrong and you just don't see a problem. I mean, in this day and age, one of us even mentioned that we want like immediate results. There's nothing wrong with doing something external that may seem reactionary to some, but for a lot of people, they can at least say, well, all right, that might seem a little reactionary. They're probably doing this because of this lawsuit, but at least they're doing something. So, I mean, at what point do you want to go more visible with some of your efforts that you're trying to do at Founders? You've also spoken about wanting to get your house in order before you do anything external. Why can't that be done in parallel? You're never going to get your house in order. And what I mean is, these racial issues, these minority issues, they're always going to exist. Like you said, your job is going to be ongoing forever because these issues will exist forever. So you'll never get your house in order. So what is the timeline for you to go external?
Good question.
We already are. I've been in this role for 2 months, and I certainly wouldn't even be engaged in this conversation if I didn't believe in being external. And so I am very external in what we're doing and very transparent in what we're doing. Also, my very first week was to meet with various organizations, specifically organizations that focus on empowerment of people of color, specifically that focus on the LGBTQ community, and started building those relationships. Luckily, I had some existing relationships from D&I work that I'd been doing in my previous career. But I certainly wasn't sitting on any of it and waiting. So I apologize if you're now just starting to see it, but understandably, it's been 2 months. But I have been working on this externally also every day.
So I'm looking at the clock and checking my watch. Again, I know we were up against it. I don't want to keep you away from your family any more than you've already been. I want to thank you for your time this evening. And my hope is that we can have a conversation in 6 months or 12 months where we're talking about, now we're thinking about purchasing and drinking Founders products again, or podcasting from literally right across the street at the Founders Tap Room, or things like that. So I say that to say we look forward to seeing the manifestations of this conversation. We look forward to seeing the actions that are coming out of this agenda. And I have just one final question that may be the most important of the night. When is Founders going to stop barrel aging IPAs?
Probably never.
Probably never.
Hey, Gracie, just real quick before you leave, just a quick piece of advice for Founders. Don't make the Black community involvement just about Black History Month, especially in a city that's 85% Black. Make sure that's an ongoing initiative
24/7.
and 24/7, because if it's just in February, that's really going to look reactionary. So
be a good neighbor.
Be a good neighbor, and
Right.
recognize where you're at and be a good neighbor.
And that goes to say too why we hadn't done Black History Month previously, because it really, first of all, we shouldn't just have 28 days, and secondly, it's not about, okay, for this 1 month, let's celebrate this. And I understand the historical context, especially, around Trans Day of Visibility and how that's one day. And it's newer, where it's not as ingrained as something like Black History Month has been. So I sometimes, just from a personal standpoint, not speaking on behalf of Founders, but from a personal standpoint, sometimes when I see companies that do things highlighting the achievements of Black Americans during February, it's like, really though, we've been doing this all year long. And so I do believe, like, when you see us doing more things, it will be on a year-round basis, not just because it's February.
All right. So again, we want to thank you for your time and thank you for your candidness. And I was talking actually before we had you on. And I want to say it again for the benefit of people who are listening to the podcast once this is done. We didn't have scripted questions. Gracie didn't say to me, "Hey, you can't ask me this, or this." It's been a very candid conversation, so I appreciate you being willing to come on and do this with us, and hopefully, again, like I said, we can have you on again and talk about some of the tangible things that have come from the things that we've talked about this evening.
Yeah, well, thank you very, very much, Harry. I appreciate you having me. Thank you to all of you. Thank you for all of your questions. As you have more questions that may have occurred to you, Harry does have my contact information, so you can get my contact information from him. If you want to have an individual conversation, I am more than willing and more than happy to do that. I'm 100% about being open, being transparent as well, because it doesn't do any good to hide, and it doesn't do any good to be silent. And so this work is a priority to us as a company. And so every time, if I have an opportunity to share what we're doing, and if you have opportunities to ask questions about what we're doing, I do welcome that. So thank you very much, all of you, for your time in this. And Harry, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Gracie. Enjoy your family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops.
All right, so we're gonna take a short break while we gather ourselves from that, and come back and get into a few other things and go into the last segment or two of Brewz Brothers. So again, this is Brewz Brothers for the culture as always, and we'll be back shortly. Brewz Brothaz, episode 11.
11. Ding,
Ding,
ding.
ding, ding for episode 11.
Episode 11.
Right. I thought, how many bells can we get tonight? Have we already hit 11 tonight?
That might be 9 or 10 right
10.
there.
Travis got 5 on his own.
Right.
So
That'll
we
work.
get 11.
That'll work. We cracked some good brews tonight. We were just talking about that. But before we start talking about the brews, I want to debrief a little bit, if we can, about the conversation we had with Gracie. Glad she was able to come on and spend a little bit of time with us and talk a little bit about what's going on at Founders and her plans moving forward. If you guys want to just kind of go around the table with some thoughts about that conversation and what we're taking away from it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I thought she was very polished and had all the right words in the right places. For an unscripted conversation, I think she said all the right things, like without having a lot of substance behind it. Because we were talking in the break about optics and how much we'd, put out there, or how much she had spoken about optics. I haven't seen any social media releases about them doing anything. So, that's kind of the disappointment. So I guess it's for me, and I've said this over and over, it's a wait and see thing. But every step they seem to make seems to be like 1 foot forward, 2 steps back, or, basically staying in the same place. So, I'm glad she came on and talked to us. That was brave.
Yep. I didn't hear anything that made me feel like it had changed my mind at all about Founders, good or bad. So it just seemed like the answers were there, and like you said, she's very polished. None of that was a problem, but there was nothing where I was like, okay, this is changing my mind a little bit. It's just like, okay, that's an answer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much about what I kind of had too, and I was kind of hoping when I had brought up, looking for the ideas of the events, and I've posted it on the Facebook group a couple times where it's just like, obviously there is Black History Month, but there's other things. There's Dilla Day, which that does it at Charles Wright
would have been perfect.
That's a perfect. I mean, I brought up, just do Wu-Tang Thursdays or something, and just come up with a 36 Chambers Ale or something, and just do something like that.
And I mean, Founders Detroit Tap Room doing a Dilla Day would be amazing.
Would be amazing.
Oh, man.
To be able to do that, and I mean, what they do at Charles Wright, where they have the kids and they can sit there and they can mix their music. I mean, I took my kids there and they had fun, and to be able to do that in a brewery setting where you can have the community to come out. I mean, it's tough going in there, like as what Wayne said about being a former member. When I walked in to get my mug, it was like what I was talking about at the episode with the beer fest. Because I walked in, it was the security guard, one guy behind the bar, and me.
That's it.
And I'm like, what did I just walk
record scratch,
in?
right?
I'm like, and that's the thing, counting allies.
Everybody's side eyeing you.
Counting allies and weighing the bar stools, right?
Right. It's like, all right, where's the exits? But yeah, it's like I didn't
front,
really
the rear, and the side.
There you go.
I didn't really feel like I got anything different, one way or the other. My problem now is that I almost feel like anything that gets done is going to be too late. Because just to kind of, I guess, like an analogy for me is that I used to be a huge baseball fan. Growing up, kid, I was a baseball fan. And then 1994 happened, and they did the strike. So they went on strike.
Not been the same since.
We lost that whole season, and I had no baseball. So I lost that whole season, and then when it came sports came around, I actually gravitated to hockey at that point.
You'd already found something
I'd
else
already
to do.
found something else. So it's like with the beer community that's here and the amount of breweries that we have, the amount of beers that come in from out of the state, the quality of the beer. I mean, it's tough to kind of say, okay, I'm going to go back to Founders, but, I got Drafting Table. I got Perrin. I got Draft Horse. I got Baffin.
Ascension.
Ascension.
Homes.
I mean, all of these
Old
breweries
Nation.
that are Old Nation. You got
Ding,
all
ding.
these breweries that are making all of this quality stuff, and you've got Founders who is barrel aging IPAs, making a. From what I'm hearing, poorer quality KBS.
I've heard bad things about
And without
KBS.
a doubt, poorer quality CBS from last year.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's coming from them that even excites me to the point where if this comes back, that I feel like I want to go
I got to
back.
run and
That's
go
right.
get
Yeah.
it.
Right,
exactly
right,
right.
Yeah.
right.
So it's tough.
I'll tell you what, man, that drafting table maple.
Oh, those
vanilla,
mean vanilla beans.
Man, I had that
Oh.
yes. Boy,
Yeah. So
That's a
at-
15%
at
kick in the ding ding.
it is. And at whatever point
but it's worth
should
it.
I possibly decide that I would be okay with going back to Founders, like you said, I don't have to.
No.
Especially
No.
if drafting table keeps putting that stuff out.
Right.
CBS, what's that?
Right.
I want this maple from drafting
Right.
table.
I got mean vanilla bean and no rules.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if that were the only three choices, I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
bye.
Yeah.
I mean, I got the other two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I get it. So I'm gonna preface this the fact that she's got a tough job.
She has a very
She
Yeah.
has a very tough job.
Well, that's a
she's,
good point.
And she's very polished, and that's what Founders needs. Now, I brought up the question about culture. I don't see a change in culture. I mean, if you look at the posts, things that go on, and they respond to certain things on the social media, and they're very calculated in the way they
Very
respond to those things. And it's like, okay, so
Wait,
we're gonna
respond or delete?
well,
both.
so I'll say that too, but for the sake of transparency, because that seems to be the word for the evening, is that those that are deleted, I didn't see. I'll say that.
Yeah.
So
I make
but,
it a habit of screenshotting things. Just
well,
so-
yeah, I do. I should too. But it's like there was a lot of attention that was brought to this after it went from being local to national with one article,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden,
Vine pair.
okay, now we're gonna do something. We're gonna do something. Just stay tuned. Stay tuned. And then they bring this young lady on here.
Because we've
With-
been banging this
Yeah.
locally.
Oh,
Yeah.
Since October.
since it
Yep.
started.
Yeah.
Since it
Yep.
started.
Yep.
And then so now when it starts to get national, it starts hitting those areas that are their distro to, then it becomes an issue.
Right.
But as far as Michigan's concerned, they didn't really give a shit about what we thought. I mean, that's the way I feel. That's the way I feel.
And that's the way it looked.
And
That's
that's
very
the
much the way it
optic
looked.
that I'm going for. And I didn't want to throw that question because that's not a fair question to her because I don't think she's going to give me the answer I want anyway. So I'll never be satisfied. But the thing is that I have always been a Founder supporter up until this point.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
bought
Yeah.
all those
Yeah.
beers. I stood my ass in those
Yeah.
long ass lines out there.
Yeah.
It's stupid to stand in line.
It
for beer
is
grading.
stupid. It is dumb. But if it's good beer, you go get it.
Or the 30 seconds you have to get tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
yeah,
what's even
okay.
worse, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So I'm going to wrap it up real quick. And so what makes me not really angry, but I have tons of Founders beers at home.
Yeah.
I don't even drink that shit right now. And I feel bad about it because I pay for it. I paid my hard-earned money for
Yeah.
those beers.
Yeah.
And they're just sitting there collecting dust.
Yep.
Now, I hope they age well.
I hope so. Because you got to get around to them sooner or later. You're not going to pour them out.
I can't pour them out. I would not. When they first started, I was like, I'm going to pour this out. I don't want to. And then someone said, no, you pay good enough.
It's like
for
burning
that."
your Nike socks,
exactly.
man.
Man, yes.
That's like stepping
Yeah.
on the kids' Legos. You're
Right.
like, I'm gonna throw these away if I step on them again.
Yeah.
If I step on them again, they're like, no, these cost too damn
cost
much.
too
and that's the thing. So, for the sake of her, I hope she does a good job. I hope the culture changes. The beer needs to get better, but I'm not looking forward to going back anytime soon until I see some tangible changes, and I
Yeah.
don't see it happening anytime soon.
Tangible change and consistency.
Yeah, consistent,
in those changes.
consistent. Yeah.
Attack dog.
I know.
I was waiting for that.
What's she gonna
That was
say?
a damn good question too.
I mean, she came on, now she's gone, and nothing has changed. My opinion of them has changed. She has done nothing tangible. Founders as a company has done nothing to make me want to go back to them at all. If anything, by their lack of activity, they've made me resent them more. And I think a lot of the same things that Rob said. Like, even had this not occurred, even had they not messed up, there's not a lot of reason to go to Founders.
Yeah.
Their beers are no good anymore, and now they've messed up socially, and they've messed up their optics, quote unquote, right? The only way I'm going back to them is even if their beers get better, I'm still not going back to them. The only way I'm going back to them is not only do they correct their misdeeds, but they become a torchbearer for minorities, for LGBTQ, for African Americans, for Hispanics, whoever. And unless they become a torchbearer, their beers are not enough for me to ever go back. That's the sad truth.
Yeah.
Your beers are
Yeah.
sucking.
Yeah.
That's the suck, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Whatever they do, I'm afraid, like Rob said, it's gonna be too late, and it's not gonna be enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be.
All right.
I mean,
And
hell,
they're still making a ton of money.
So what you're
Oh, yeah.
saying,
So keep
Juho,
that in
is
mind. A ton of
that-
money.
that
That's
bridges-
the other
the
side
bridges-
of it too. The lack of allies.
Yeah.
Folks that don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
There's plenty
I'm
of
still
them.
drinking that shit.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that, but
yeah.
come on.
They're still gonna make their money. They're
Yeah.
not going anywhere.
No.
They're gonna be here long after I'm dead.
Yeah.
Yes, they will.
But I gotta do what's right for me.
Juho,
Right.
is the bridge burned?
Oh yeah, it's burned.
It's burned. So there's nothing they can
Well,
do.
I guess it's not burned. Again, if they become a torchbearer for minority rights and they become this they blaze this new trail for breweries and other breweries are catching up to try to do what they've done because they've done such an amazing job internally and externally in the community, then even if their beers suck, you know what? I'm gonna go buy a few.
Because the truth of the matter is, from a financial standpoint,
Yeah.
they've got the capital to do whatever the hell they want to do.
Absolutely.
They got the
Absolutely.
capital to
I mean,
reach
if-
out to whomever if they
Yeah.
want to do that.
That's
They've got the capital to do that.
I
That's
mean,
not an issue.
If they want to go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, I mean, they could have 4 black people in an ad and jet.
Easily.
Easily. They can do that right next to the Beauty of the Week.
That's
It would be
right.
right there. Like
That will ensure that I see it.
I will see it.
I mean, we will look at it and say, all right, that's going way too damn far.
But that's a nice effort.
Visible. It's visible, but
Yeah.
it's too damn far.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, I'm not going to use the fat lady singing analogy.
She's warming up, dog.
But no, she's not warming up. I hear KRS warming up with The Bridge is Over.
The bridge is over.
I was waiting for that. When I was waiting for it, I was about to do it, man.
Man, I wish we'd have had these damn copyright laws.
So The Bridge is Over is definitely coming up pretty soon because what's most unfortunate is a couple of things in my opinion. One is just the aspect of founders. For example, Christian was introduced to craft brews with founders. You know, had him go up to Grand Rapids with me for a KBS release a few years ago.
That was me. KBS my gateway.
Yeah.
That was the gateway.
Me too.
And we did a KBS hotel package. You know, so you had the chocolates and the bag and the hotel room.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we did a little Grand Rapids tour of breweries the night before, and then the day of the release, we went over and had lunch, and you know, just had a
The whole
great
deal,
time.
yeah.
And you know, that was his gateway, and I was happy to introduce him to it. So, you know, I was even more ecstatic in seeing them come to my city, and I just felt that, you know, because my experiences in Grand Rapids, that they were going to be good neighbors. It turns out they were the worst neighbors. They were slumlords, basically. You know, in terms of really not caring about the community or the neighborhood.
Right.
And I don't say that in a mean-spirited way. I say that they've done nothing to enhance the neighborhood. They've done nothing to enhance the community. They've done nothing to reach back. And they've made me feel as an outsider in my hometown.
Yeah.
You know, so in saying that, it's pretty difficult to embrace them when you're asking to see things and you're told the optics and we have to be intentional.
Yeah.
You know, so you keep hearing these key buzzwords. So she said all the right buzzwords.
Yeah.
But the sad part about the buzzwords, it lends back to the fact that how did you get there if it was not intentional in the first place?
Should have been intentional when you got here, when you opened the doors.
You know, but so if everything's intentional, you know, so
Yep.
since that's the
Yep.
buzzword, so intentionally you got here, and now intentionally you're staying here because the optics of it, you know, haven't done anything but the internal training. That's great. Juho made the perfect point. You should do things in parallel.
Yeah.
Because you're never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
You're never going to be
Because
right
I mean,
anyway.
the things that you do externally, if the things are done incorrectly externally, you can fix that both externally
At the same
and
time.
internally.
That's right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right, and as a stakeholder in a few of the key minority organizations around this city, I haven't heard anybody talking about them. So I don't know who she's talking to, but I would have heard some of the whispers and noise because I've got my ears to the ground and involved in a few of these places around here too because it's my city.
Yeah.
You know, and so they haven't come in.
How many LGBTQ plus associations do you have, though? Because that
Well,
seems to be a
that seems to be
major
where they're going.
major
Yeah.
point
Yeah.
for them right now.
So
It's a new market.
that market I'm not as plugged into as I am in the black community. You know, but in the African American community, I've heard no whispers, no rumbling, and they have not. I don't know who they've reached out to. That will be my question to her on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Because maybe you're not talking to the right stakeholders,
Right.
or maybe we can put you in touch with some of the right people to make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's kind of what as far as a company standpoint is what they see, is that they see that they can make more money off the LGBTQ group. than
Follow
they
the
can
money.
on the
That's
minority.
at the end of
Hit
the
the bell,
day.
please.
And so let's
At the
go
end
at
of that, that's
let's go after the big money first.
Yeah.
And then
That
let's
could
go
be.
after the minorities who
Yeah.
are not drinking as much craft beer, but the ones that are drinking craft beer aren't drinking your craft beer because you done fucked
And
up.
Rob, I have to say, in one of my emails to the CEO, and this one he never responded to. We had some back and forth initially when this broke out in October.
Yep.
My last message to him was one that ended with, maybe you're not concerned with the percentage of funds that the African American community spends with you, and so maybe when that becomes an issue, that these things will be addressed. And at that point, I never heard back from him. You know, so I guess maybe it was a little hard on email. But we had a few back and forth prior to. And that was probably 2 months before Gracie was hired.
Yeah. If not a little more than that.
You know, so it's been a very delayed response from them on what's going on. And by the time, if they ever do get it right, I have to agree with Juho on this too. Unless they're just a torchbearer and head and shoulders above everybody else and just set the standard on this is how it should be done nationally, it's no reason to.
Yeah.
Because even if you separate all of that from a beer standpoint, I don't need to go back. I
That's
mean,
right.
Yeah, I don't need a barrel-aged IPA.
I thought it was interesting that her comment about being intentional and not wanting to sort of pander to the community. But I sent
while
that
pandering
picture,
to the
right. I
I
sent the
mean,
picture
when
of
the
the
community is
flag.
85%,
But
is
they
it
were
really
okay.
pandering?
They were okay. They're okay pandering to the trans community.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah,
they put that
Yeah.
flag up there, and you're
flag
welcome
up.
in our place.
This
And
is-
you're, so what? But why is that different?
There's a
Why are you
saying,
so afraid to talk to
there-
know
trans
your
people?
market.
Because that happened before she was there.
Yeah.
That picture didn't happen.
I
before she
know.
was there.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, it just makes it sound like they're okay pandering to everyone in the neighborhood who is able to afford
Who's got some money to spend.
$250,000 loft.
Yeah.
If we've pandered to you before, we're going to continue pandering. But if we haven't, no, we're not going to do that.
Right.
And, so, and I also want to be clear. It was not my perception, and I'm certain that everybody here at this table, it was not their perception either. We weren't going to solve anything in 30 minutes.
No,
Of course not.
no.
What was my intention was to take some of the conjecture out of the air.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because up until this point, all we could do was talk about what founders should be doing, what kind of things we would be doing if we were in their shoes. So I wanted to provide a platform where people can, for better or worse, hear what Founders is doing or is not doing from Founders. Not from me, not from anybody else at the table,
Right.
from Founders.
Right.
And take from that what they will. If this was enough for somebody else to say, you know what, I can go and buy a pack of KBS tomorrow. That's great.
That's great.
It's not going to happen for me,
Yeah.
Right.
but
Definitely not happening for me.
right. But my point is that now we've gotten a situation where the community has an opportunity to, at very least, have heard a voice from Founders and can now make a decision based on that and not based on other kinds of conversation.
True.
So
Baseless conjecture.
take baseless conjecture. So take that as however you will, folks out in podcast land. And, again, for me, I'm not going out tomorrow or the day after to buy any Founders beer. But this may have been enough to sway somebody else, and it may have further entrenched others.
Right. And it just seems like, the Brewz Brothers Supreme Court are unanimous.
Yes. I think so. I don't think we'll have any dissenting opinions coming out tomorrow.
I don't think there's any dissenting opinions at all.
Clonk, clonk.
Unless you're getting Ellison's dissenting opinions, which that probably one is amazing too.
It is. And
Yeah.
I got one left on my show. I actually looked at it the other day. It's probably really good right now.
You spend a lot of time looking at beer.
Not as much time as I spend
lots of
drinking.
drinking.
Yeah, so again, I'm glad we were able to get that, 30, 40 minutes, whatever it was.
I appreciate her for coming on.
I do too. I appreciate her
appreciate
time,
her.
and she had some family stuff going on and still carved out that time
And
for
that's
us. And
that's why you have to respect
that's
her.
a good look.
I got
Again,
nothing against Gracie. And
No.
everything that I've said, I think, like Grady said, she has a hell of a job. That job sucks.
Oh, yeah.
Her job sucks.
yeah.
The things that I've said negative about founders is towards founders, and
Correct.
I want to thank Grace for coming on here. That was really cool.
And I mean, I think she gets that. The problem is that in a situation like that, in that role, nothing you do is going to be right.
Right.
That's right.
So for me, if it were me, because nothing I could do can be right, I'm going to go all gas, no brakes to we need to make this up. I don't give a damn what it looks like.
Right.
Because we need to make this. We got to turn this around quick because we've been ignoring it for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we want
Her
to
approach
listen.
is different.
Right.
And it may not be 100% her call. Who knows?
Right.
But
Right.
her approach is different, and I hope that it works out for her.
I do too.
And I hope that again, and not just for the sake of beer, for the sake of this community, because looking outside and looking at the people walking up and down the street, and looking at the people who live here, and knowing the population who used to be able to afford to live here, and then looking at the staff in the tap room, makes me fine with never going back.
Right.
Yeah.
Just
Well.
sidebar into
Right, part. Somebody come and get this. Come and get this soapbox. So I can.
sidebar for our listeners. We have a few different special guests coming up on next few podcasts. We can't announce everybody right now, but stay tuned. We've got some very exciting guests coming to talk to us. People are listening, and we didn't know as many people were listening that are listening.
Got a little more reach than we knew we had.
Shout out to us.
Yeah. Hit the bell. Hit the bell.
Our listeners.
Hit the bell.
It's a sticky ass. What the hell's in this
My
bell?
bell needs some oil. If you could work that out.
Bell.
She ain't spilling no beer in this bell. What the heck?
That was probably me.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure
I
the
do
bell
love
wants
that. I
some.
do love that you
You
guys.
know what? Wait.
Everybody.
I was gonna say that I do love that you guys embrace the bell, because on our show somebody rings the bell and everybody gets pissed off and the bells have got to go away.
That's a shame.
I am glad that you guys embrace the bell,
man.
because they're
Embrace
I-
the
it's
bell.
it's
Embrace
well
the
deserved
bell.
for a lot of the conversation that happens and the points that get brought up. It's kudos to you guys who put this stuff on, and just from Better on Draft, it's highly appreciated. It is a good listen.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a symbiotic relationship with Better on Draft. We appreciate you guys, man. We've said it several
guys are
times
family.
over. You guys are family, man, and you've had a beyond a huge hand
Yes.
in us being here right now. So yeah, shouts out to Better on Draft.
Even though they don't like the bells.
Even though
Just be forceful. with it.
Sticky ass bell.
right, that bell has gotten sticky. What you guys been doing with the
don't
bell,
know.
man? Keep it down there. I don't want it.
Got some
All I know is-
Rico juice on it.
Oh, wow.
Oh man, it's getting late in the podcast.
Right, it always starts to go left. The better we get.
Segueing right now.
Oh wait, we can't talk
Speaking
over
of
one
which,
another.
Can somebody pass me that hand sanitizer? We talking about sticky bells. It's right there in front
Like, are
of
you
Wayne.
serious?
Thank you, brother. It's
There's one there.
Yeah.
No.
Oh God, ew.
So
Getting
wait.
off the subject of stickiness.
yeah.
Yeah, I got a good one for you.
What's your good one?
So there was a post about a week ago from Old Nation.
About
That
a
had
week ago,
a strawberry on the post.
Yeah, that
That
time
was
of
it.
year is coming around.
So Wayne, so are we gonna go out to Old Nation and pick up our case?
Man, they got
I thought you
Tussin
didn't
at
care for
CVS, man. They got cases of Robitussin at CVS.
Oh, I'm sure Travis fixed it this time
You
around.
think so?
You gotta try it. You know you gotta try
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
Oh, it's gonna be here. We're gonna have to try that. Wayne, are
There's
we gonna
one thing
try
that
it?
we do have. We will try it.
Yeah.
We tried the last one.
Yeah.
And speaking of the symbiotic relationship,
That's the beer that started it all.
Right.
We were all looking forward to trying that new
Yeah.
strawberry M43 and couldn't wait to. I'm choking up just.
Don't cry. Sorry.
You know,
All I know is I
wow.
put that can in front of y'all, and it was just
It
no,
was just,
nah.
I thought y'all had made a mistake and gave Wayne some fig jam.
Oh, the plums.
Here we go.
I've still got some
Now,
for you.
what I do have, and I'm ignoring that, Mark Donkers,
God.
is that I have one can of the original M43 strawberry that's been in my refrigerator since.
Wow, that sounds terrible. Wow.
Mark has asked me to bring that, so when the new one comes out, we can do a side by side.
That's gonna be amazing.
Verticals.
That's gonna be amazing.
Are you
Verticals
gonna do it?
always are the best.
A vertical of a strawberry IPA. That can't go wrong. That's going to be fucking amazing.
So I've got a can left, and it's pretty bad because my kids know me, and they know that if something stays around too long,
Something wrong with it.
it's fair game.
Yeah.
Oh.
They understand that,
Nobody's touched it.
and nobody's touched it. But there were two. So
somebody got
somebody
one.
touched
touched
it
that
and
one.
knows
was
not to touch the other
I
one.
won't get back. Because they even say, hey, if y'all want to, because there's a certain section that they can drink from,
Okay.
and there's a section that they know they better stay the hell away from.
That's in my house as well.
So the M43 strawberry has been in the drinkable section since it came out,
And it's still there.
and it's still there.
Come on, Travis. We counting on you, dog.
I got the whole section. My wife does not drink at all.
Nor does mine, so yeah.
I got the whole the whole fridge in the basement. I got a cold storage area in the
It's
back.
a blessing
in
and
the
a
house.
curse, dog.
It's all me. And yeah, I look at him like, damn, I need somebody to help me with this. Bottle. I'm sitting there looking at a Black Tuesday. I'm like, I really want to drink that, but I can't take that shit myself.
Yep.
Every
I don't
first
wanna
and third
black out
Wednesday,
that
You can
hard.
find the Brewz brothers ready and willing to drink a
Right,
Black
right.
Tuesday.
Well, Rob, I have a new class coming up where you can enroll, and I'll share with you how to drink one of those by yourself. So it's just a few, minor. You got to bring a couple of whales. Cost of admission. And we'll share with you how to drink
And a
Black
sleeping
Tuesday.
Hey,
by
Right.
yourself.
all right.
But along with back to my M43 strawberry, there's a couple of Sasha's favorites that are sitting next to it from Rochester Mills.
Oh, yeah. Milkshake stout.
Oh my
Man,
God.
But the
you
question
know-
is, do you have the special glass? The milkshake
Did
stout
anybody
glass.
get that
Special
glass?
There's a special glass?
They
There
they
is.
had
It's
a
shaped
glass
like a milk
that
bottle.
was like a milk
I want
bottle.
it.
Really? I want that.
It actually
Yeah.
is a dope glass. The beer is
Yeah.
shit, but the glass is dope.
Thank you. Thank you. But yeah.
Did I say that out loud?
Hard.
Yeah, I heard you.
Was that on the podcast?
Rochester Mills really?
It's in the water.
Is it? Hey man, I
It's
like
hot water.
I like some of your beers, man. Just not
Just
the
not
Name
the,
one that
the
you like.
case, the holiday.
name one
They
that
get
I
a
like.
little-
Yeah, name
I
one.
did like the Imperial Red that came in that barrel aged 4-pack a couple years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's the one you asked for. Don't ask for another one. Don't do it.
You can't ask Sasha because we've only got 10 minutes left because we'll be here, till tomorrow.
Right. She'll be listing
Should
their
just be-
whole beer list. I love
I only
turtle cheesecake.
Oh.
I love German chocolate.
strawberry.
I love
Oh,
blueberry
God.
pancake.
No.
No,
Ooh,
that's
none
not
of
how
them.
that'll happen.
None of them.
Not one.
No. It's like they got a bottle of McCormick flavor and squirted it in.
Sasha's front wall just got all Rochester Mills cans lined up. She just wants. That's why she won't let us come to her house. She don't want to see all the cans on her front
She
wall.
just-
Give me
And
that
look-
honey lavender.
And she just squirts it everywhere too.
So that's
What the
one
hell did I
place
do to y'all? Can I have the quiz? I'll try this one. I'll try this one.
I can guarantee we'll never do a podcast there.
It's not gonna happen.
Rochester Mills will
Oh.
never get invited there.
They'll hang up the phone.
No, they just won't let me come.
No, I think we've all said
I think
enough.
there's a few of us that won't be able to get through the door.
I like
Not
you
you.
guys.
Right, I would
Right.
say it'll be Juho
I like him.
and
like
Ellen and some microphones, and that'll be Brewz Brothers podcast number 344, broadcasting live from Rochester Mills because we've exhausted every other venue
Wow,
in the last 343
But
episodes.
they'll probably put
This
Ellen
beer
out.
also tastes metallic.
I would think they would want to have you on just because they would want to change your opinion.
I would hope so, Rochester Mills.
It
I
ain't-
mean, that's the thing.
We maybe should reach out to y'all and you know.
I mean,
Who's making that call?
The good
I'll
thing,
make the call. I'll make the call.
The good thing about the breweries is that the breweries are open to opinions. I mean, it's like Old Nation.
Yep.
And that strawberry tart M43, it really wasn't all that. But it wasn't like we just sat there and just went on Untappd, put it at 1 star, and said it sucked.
We said it sucked.
I mean, well, you said it sucked.
He did go on Untappd and say it.
But I mean,
I need pastry stout. Mark, Travis,
Mark.
There's no such thing as pastry stout.
Right.
Leave it alone.
it's on the board though, Wayne.
Volume 2.
Mm-hmm.
Only on the board.
Only on the board.
Not in the
Guys,
glass.
nobody said anything about my kombucha beer. I'm a little sad.
Grady told me not to drink it.
I'll give that. I'll give that.
Down.
I give that New Holland
It wasn't bad.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
kombucha IPA a middling grade.
A middling grade.
So what do I
is,
need
is,
to
is,
do?
as your middle finger
was-
or the middle of the?
It's not.
Mid to
It's not.
middling.
It's not terrible.
I'm gonna try.
You know, Sasha, I agree with your.
Not terrible.
It's not terrible.
I remember your initial review of this,
Yes.
and you said something to the effect of, "If you drink it quickly, it's good."
Yes.
That would be very good.
It needs
straight
to
out
be
of the
very
fridge.
cold, yes,
And if it were straight out of the fridge, and it would be good for about 3 minutes after.
Yeah.
If it doesn't
Drink
hit
it.
your taste buds, it's real good.
It's like Twin Peaks with their 29-degree frosted glasses. If you need a 29-degree glass, don't drink the beer. I absolutely agree that kombucha beer would be good straight out of the fridge for a couple of minutes, and if you let it
But
sit
now I
longer than that,
understand.
And you
Sasha.
taste more of the kombucha as it sits.
I
If you
understand.
don't like
Sasha.
that,
depends on who you are. That may be good or bad.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You said if you drink it fast, cold, straight out the fridge,
It's
so you
good.
don't taste it.
Yep.
I didn't say so you
And-
don't
and-
taste
and-
it.
and That
Well,
seems to be
It's been going
Sasha's
in on me.
style.
What did I do to you?
You know, that's certain natty style.
Oh,
Fast and
Natter
Wayne,
days.
you keep fucking
And
around.
that-
I'll bring it.
Is that how you drink Natter Days? 2 minutes
Drank
out of the
one.
fridge.
I drank one.
Oh, but is that how you drank that one?
Yes.
Out of the fridge,
Yes.
2 minutes, done.
Yes.
Donkers. let
And
me
it
give
still
you a fair
tasted like
warning.
strawberry syrup. It
Strawberry
was like,
If she brings
Slurpee
Natter
syrup, you know.
Days, make sure you're not on the end because you might get pushed out with her.
oh.
Collateral damage, dog.
She's supposed to bring one on the sly today.
I know. You gotta read my. I'll get you one. It's between us.
see that kombucha IPA, that just I feel like that kind of goes for the fitness crowd, kind of not trying to go outside of that whole Michelob 64. I mean, it's all right for me. It's all right, but I've been drinking kombucha for probably like the better part of the last 6-7
I love
years.
kombucha.
Yeah.
I love kombucha.
So do I.
But it's like when I want kombucha, I want flavor of a kombucha.
Not beer, not an IPA.
Not an IPA.
That's right.
I mean, I want ginger, or I want whatever the GT's makes with the boysenberry or the chai surprise or whatever the other ones are, and to get I'm a little frou-frou with the kombucha.
Okay,
I know.
it's
He
kombucha.
went all in on that.
I get
Didn't
it.
he?
You like a kombucha elitist.
I mean,
Tell us how you really feel about it.
don't be surprised if you catch my ass at Whole Foods after this.
Don't be fucking up my kombucha.
Hey, and for the kids, don't shake my damn bottles. Don't shake the bottles.
We learned something new from you today, Rob.
Hey, every time.
So is that what you drink while you're doing your trivia thing at Eastern Market? You got your kombucha on the side with your white stout?
Oh hell no! I'm drinking a beer and eating a wing.
Okay. All right. I was just trying to see how far we go with this thing.
I go and get the kombucha after to help the digestion.
The digestif.
Yes.
All right.
So I mean, for the kombucha and kombucha and an IPA being together, I want one or the other. I don't. It's okay, but I don't want the combination because when I see kombucha on the label, I am like in my head.
There's
I'm
an
expecting.
expectation. Yeah.
There's an expectation, and it's like,
yeah.
there's IPA. Wait,
All you're getting is compromised kombucha and compromised IPA, and you're
Yes.
mixing like that. That
Right.
sucks.
yeah.
So
For the
nothing
health
plus
nuts.
nothing leaves nothing is what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah.
have something.
Okay, gotta have something if you want to be with
If
me.
you want to be with
That's
me,
right.
you got to have something, and these two don't have a damn thing. Hey, I got to say, man, this blender is great.
Yeah. Speaking for the health
All
nuts.
right.
Yeah,
I
thanks.
didn't.
That was good.
Yeah.
It was too tart.
Thanks, Grady. No, I thought it was great.
I thought it was
Yeah.
Very
good.
well balanced.
So I got
Unpopular
that from
opinion
our
over
buddy
here.
Matt Demarest.
Nice,
And we
thanks,
will
Matt.
try to get him on. Him and Oliver.
I like you came to see through it.
From,
It's dope.
That-
Shores.
That was a nice sour. That's not
It
too
looked
tart.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
The
was
color
good.
was great.
I had
but
a
I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Too
had a
tart.
black currant one yesterday. It wasn't sour. It
Hey,
was tart.
West
It was
O'Leary's
good.
chasing this. They're doing a double fruitsicle this summer.
Oh.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah. So, I think we're down to like the
We
2
got 3
minute mark.
minutes
Where
left.
we at,
We
Ellen?
got 3 minutes
Yeah,
We
left.
got 2 minutes, says Ellen.
And speaking of, well, the number 3, did anybody see what came out from our friends at Old Nation with the label for
Oh,
Brewz?
the dietary details of
The dietary
Brewz.
details, yeah. Brewz has 3 carbs.
3.
3.
Wow.
Three
All right,
carbs,
keto
3
people.
grams of carbs. And that's what it was.
What
That
happened?
was, I saw the 3 carbs and was like, wow.
Well,
And
That's a
3
good beer.
3
That's a
carb
really good
grams and 3
I
protein
haven't had it
grams.
yet.
I'm not counting any of that.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
so-
And the beer is
I
still
could've
really
brought
good.
some of that. I
I
like
drink it because it's good. I don't give a damn about the
Have-
carbs, protein, but that's a plus.
Haven't had
I'll
it,
take
but I want all the carbs.
How have you not had it yet? What are you doing?
I haven't
I
had
don't
it
know.
either.
I didn't bring one
What?
because I thought everybody here had it.
No.
I'm living through you, buddy.
Come on, son.
Nah.
All right, we'll work it out. dog.
Okay, I'm
We'll
sure I
work it
can
out.
find something.
So,
On the table, let's see.
Last
Say
words.
goodbye.
yeah, any
Last
parting shots? Quick parting shots.
Hey, bless you guys at Old Nation for putting Boss Tweed around the
Get a bill for
on
that
the
Boss
calendar
Tweed year-round.
because that is my jam.
Good looking, Sasha.
I don't know what to say.
All right, Rob. Thanks for coming out. Special guest.
Yes, thank you guys for having me. I will be hopefully having myself a Boss Tweed while I'm waiting in line for No Rules.
My man, Grady.
Another great podcast, fellas.
Yes,
and,
sir.
And lady.
Good to have you back,
Thank
man.
you.
Yes, I'm back.
Yeah.
Hopefully for more than once every 2 or 3.
Hey, you got to follow the money, dog.
You know it.
Yeah.
I got tuition for 2 kids now. So yeah.
Yes,
yes,
sir.
yes indeed.
Hit the bell for that. Congratulations on that, man.
Stick.
Hey,
The Rico,
Back
Wayne,
Rico
Wayne,
bell.
Wayne don't want to hear you crying, though.
Yeah.
Hey, man, hey, look.
You only
let me
paying
tell
for
you
school in college?
Hey,
Man, don't get out of here with that.
hey, I guess I didn't love my wife enough. I don't know. Which is probably why I was divorced. I don't know. I'm saying.
Juho, what you got?
But as always, man, it's fun as always. It was nice having a special guest on.
Yes, indeed.
Looking forward to our future special guests.
Yes.
All right.
Well, sadly, this may be my last podcast.
You can catch Wayne at Eastern Market Brew
because-
Company
Right.
every
Eastern
Wednesday
Market
night.
Brew Company every
The
Wednesday
new
night.
Trivia King.
Because I will be hopefully doing trivia if we can work with the details, and Rob will be taking my place here. If you hear me on the next podcast, it's because Rob's a cheap bastard and cannot pay my money. But if not, I'll be here.
I am a cheap
I'll be
bastard because when I get to host at Eastern Market, I do get all the beer that I want, and they've already told me that if I leave, that I got to pay that beer tab, and I'm already.
Oh,
Probably
you don't
up
want
there-
that? Yeah.
I'm already probably like $500-600 deep.
Okay, you have a mortgage payment in already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I guess I'll see you guys next Wednesday.
Again, thanks to our special guest, Rob. Rob, you know you got an open invite, man. Pop in whenever,
Appreciate it.
whenever you get a break from trivia
Yes.
or whatnot. And actually, we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We will be at Eastern Market Brewing Company down in Detroit's Eastern Market, obviously.
Wangs.
Hopefully I get
50
the
cent wings that night. Hell of a tap list as always. Come join us, hang out, have a few drinks. If you're not familiar with Eastern Market, you can get familiar. And we look forward to seeing some of the Brewz Brothers family in the house. Until then, Brewz Brothers Podcast
For the
number
culture.
11 for the culture. We are out. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Eastern Market Brewing Company.
Go
Peace.
green.
go white.
What?
Go home.
I hope that made it in. Go home.
Yes. Thank you. Great.